Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast anime edition. Today we have a very special episode for you guys today. Today we have the My Hero enthusiast, Miss Andrea Alanese with us. First off, how are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing to steal off of my predecessor talking about Miss Sailor Moon. I'm doing fantabulous today.
Yes, so the My Hero enthusiast will not be talking about My Hero this particular episode. She did just have her latest episode come out talking about episodes 5 through 8. That's already out, so check that out if you're catching up on My Hero Vigilantes. Today on this episode is special because Andrea is going to be talking about Sailor Moon. We're going to get into that, and we're going to be talking about her recent experience at the latest convention that she went to a couple of weeks ago, and then we will go from there. But first, we will start off with Andrea. What convention were you just at a couple weeks ago?
I was just at the Riverwalk Anime Convention 2025. It's my second convention ever. It is my second appearance at this convention. I took a break last year, and this year, thankfully, so to my knowledge, the first year I went was the first year the Riverwalk Anime Convention had ever happened. And
Hmm.
so I'm guessing, the organizers weren't kind of aware of the poll during that general time frame of the year. It was the middle of April. And so the first year and last year, it fell right smack the same weekend as our local Poteet Strawberry Festival, which is only about an hour south of San Antonio. It's really, really popular. And that was part of the reason the first year that I went in 2023 that I only went for one day because I wanted to make it to the festival. Fresh strawberries, Poteet is known for their strawberries, so it's kind of a big deal. Um, but this year they moved the convention to May. So I'm like, yes, perfect. Can do both if I want to. Also, had learned from my previous, trip solo. I went completely by myself the first time. Um, got more of a lay of the land for how the lines work for getting, merchandise signed, meeting your favorite voice actors, all that good stuff, plus how extensive the artist alley can get. So I bought my tickets in advance and I got a weekend pass. So I went both days this year, which was awesome. And I don't know about last year. I can't say about the second year that they had it. But one of the big differences for me immediately when I got there is we actually got passes this year. And ironically enough, um, the main character on the passes is Midoriya. So I love the fact that we got passes and lanyards this year. It didn't matter if you had a day pass or a weekend pass or a VIP. Everybody got the same rainbow triangle pattern lanyard and pass, which either said VIP Saturday, Sunday, or weekend, which was really, really cool. Um, yeah, so man, I don't know where to start when it comes to this convention I just went to. I mean, it was really fun. Both times I've gone, really, really fun. Another big difference between the first year I went and this one is I believe they caught wind of how large the community, the anime or quote unquote nerd community is here in San Antonio because they upped the size of the convention hall that they rented. I remember the first year I went, I got there late even, and I had to wait in line I think I was in line 30 minutes to an hour. Like we were lined up in an empty hall in a zigzag line and slowly crawling through. This time I did get there early. However, I mean, there was basically no wait in line. It was less than 5 minutes. You got your stuff scanned, grabbed your pass, and you were good to go. It was awesome. And so with the bigger space, they had more room for more, you know, vendors. Of course, we actually had some, compared to the first year, there were some, what is it? Kind of like food stalls, like carts. They had elote, they had aguas frescas in there, they had other like little snack things. There was a like gaming corner where they had the old like arcade style games. The panels were actually taking place this time in the same hall. I will say that was probably like a negative, like a quote unquote con, haha. I would put that in the con column of this convention because the sound didn't really travel for the panels as well. So it was kind of hard to hear, especially if you weren't like at the very front. Because the last time I went, the panels were in a separate like conference room upstairs. So you would have to like leave the main convention floor to go to the panel, and it would just be completely the panel. Again, it was better for sound quality, but I thought it was nice that you could kind of just like float in and out, and you didn't necessarily have to. Um, you could kind of stand at the back and dip into Artist Alley if seats weren't open or if you just wanted to stand because those chairs were kind of really close together. Plus, I mean, as somebody who sits the majority of the time during the week for their job, it was kind of nice to stand. But yeah, their assortment of panels, I feel like this time was way better as well. I got to hit what was the first one I went to? I didn't make it to the Avatar: The Last Airbender panel. I made it to the Sailor Moon panel, made it to the My Hero panel, and Demon Slayer. So I went to 3 panels this year. There was a bunch more panels I noticed for video games as well, like the voice actors for particular popular video games. I'm not much of a gamer, so I didn't really pay too much attention to those. But yeah, it was still really interesting.
So looking at from animecons.com, it looks like this is the third time because it looks like Riverwalk was debuted April 15th through 16th, 2023. Then it had it April 13th through 14th, 2024. And then this past one, May 17th and 18th, 2025, down there in San Antonio, Texas. And then just looking at from each year, the increase of guests who were there each time looks like it's increased year by year with the growing popularity that it has down there in San Antonio. And then with these cons now, each time that you've gone, like learning something new or buying stuff ahead of time, things of that nature, have you already, because I know they give discounts way ahead of time, have you already thought about buying your stuff for next year?
Oh, absolutely. My thought was this last time is like, okay, I'm buying ahead for sure. So I did get my weekend pass. I don't know if it was how much of a discount because I bought them almost like, ooh, I think it was like 8 months in advance.
Hmm.
Basically, as soon as they released them is when I bought them. And I knew I wanted to do that. However, my hesitation was then like, ooh, okay. Like I definitely saw some of the benefits the first time around for somebody to have a VIP pass, like
Hmm.
especially the VIP lines for the signatures.
Right.
Pretty darn short. Get to cut like a good portion of the line here and there. Like they make it as fair as possible, of course. But the price difference between a VIP versus like the weekend pass, like I couldn't justify it based on that because A, at the time I was buying them, I didn't know who was going to be there. B, I was also just like after my first my first trip and coming to realize how much it costs to, meet the voice actors, get their signatures, all that good stuff. Um I was kind of thinking I wasn't going to get too many anyway, so if I had to wait in like a long line once or twice, like that's not going to kill me. But then once I got there and more of the like official announcements were coming out, you saw more of like the merchandise that the VIP guests also got. Plus, during the panels, I don't know if I just missed it the last time, but the VIP passes allowed you to sit in the first 4 rows of the panels. So I didn't see any instances where, the panel was like overly packed and the front was the only place with available seating so people could go up there. But generally speaking, it was enforced that if you didn't have a VIP pass, you couldn't go past. It was either the third or fourth row. So it's like, oh, that's nice. And then especially since if you sit towards the front, you get there early enough, you figure out which side the mic's on, you got a better chance of hopping on the mic to ask the panel a question, of course. So it's like, well, in combination, maybe, maybe it would be worth it. I'm not sure. I'm still that is my current debate is if I would like next year or the next time I go, would I want to shell out the extra money for a VIP pass? And I'm not sold yet. Not quite sold yet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, it's interesting how each con runs their organization, how proceeding and all that stuff. Because, like you said over there, and like the big one that's been coming through, obviously here, like GalaxyCon and things of that nature. I mean, it's really first come, first serve in terms of seating for like panels and all of that. I mean, the passes really are, especially the VIP or certain passes are used for more of the pictures, like taking pictures with voice actors or
Mm,
actors and things like that. Because, like you said, like from the difference between like me and you, like you've gotten autographs from voice actors and actors and all that stuff, and I've not, but I have taken pictures with actors and I've done more the picture route than the signing route. I don't know, just that interesting dynamic in that one. And the recent boom of cons across the thing. Won't spend too much on it, but we did when Hannah, the wife of Jacob, the wrestling expert, when she was on a couple
hmm
years ago for her very first Galaxy Con, we did a little thing. There was a podcast there. I can link it in the comments about what you should expect at your first con and things that you learn each time. I think what I would tell people now is that if you are only going for Saturday and Sunday, that is cool. That's fine. But if you want to save yourself a lot of time and headache and you live close to the con place, after work, drive and pick up your stuff that Friday night. It will save
hmm
you significant time waiting in line for registration on the Saturday. Or if you have someone who's going to be there all 3 days, have them pick up your registration for you and give it to you. It just saves you a lot of time.
Oh, for sure. I didn't realize there were cons that started. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've never
GalaxyCon
been.
starts on Friday,
I was
Friday
gonna say
afternoon.
I've never been to a con that starts Friday afternoon, Friday evening, but that makes a lot of sense. Um, and of course, I'm glad you were able to confirm for me that Riverwalk Anime is really new because
Hmm.
um, it was one of the first ones that came across my Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So it was something I thought was pretty established. However, again, this year we get past. Again, I don't know if last year they had passes, but you know how I am when it comes to collectibles and like hoarding things of significance.
Hmm.
So if there would have been a pass from the first go around, I would have it. So it even in small instances like that, I can see the evolution. Plus, again, being new to San Antonio, I just had no idea. It wasn't until I was talking about having gone to this convention that people were like, "Oh yeah, like this is so huge. Are you going to go to San Japan?" And apparently, San Japan is like, from what I've heard from my experience, probably to me sounds like a con with a con on steroids with a rave aspect to it. They have like a masquerade dance. They have
Looking at
like
it,
they.
San Japan is
Mhm.
a GalaxyCon
Is it
because
okay?
yeah, it's looking like it's GalaxyCon level because it has even just looking the largest anime slash gaming convention in South Texas. And it's a 3 day event, so it has a whole bunch of different things. Because I would say with the Riverwalk thing, it was strictly anime, like
hmm
some small video games, but like the Galaxy Cons and things like that, they're bringing in like movie stars and things like that. Like the last Galaxy Con that I went to, the big headliner was Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen,
hmm
like Darth Vader. So like they're bringing in stars like that. So that means you're getting, which goes back to my thing about all the more people that these things touch, the more crowded it's going to be, the more stressed you're going to be, the more prepared you're going to want to be. And
For
looking
sure.
at this Sand Japan, like this is pretty intense right now, like on the site. And I can actually, it has a countdown to it and everything, like 86 days, 8 hours, 39 minutes and seconds and counting. And it's, yeah, the biggest one in South Texas. It's pretty wild. Like the guests already, like they're starting to get that. So I think that's I get it. I mean, hotel, travel, downtown parking, like the site's pretty legit. Cosplay show,
Hmm.
contact all the socials, register.
I was
So,
looking through, I think it might have been the schedule from it was either the schedule from last year or getting a peek at the schedule for this year, but it also seemed like they have a lot of stuff going on all of the time. So like of course they have panels, but it also seemed like they had like breakout rooms to be kind of led by us as the participants to talk about a certain topic.
hmm
Some of them were very like instructional sounding, where it was like how to, like easy how to make cosplay wigs or
yeah.
people's like tips for cosplaying cheaper. Just like some of it was really kind of informative and instructional, or
hmm
it's more kind of adoring in the sense of just getting together to all talk about either like My Hero or Puella. Is it Puella Madoka Magica? Magica Madoka. Anyway, just trying to throw out a different anime name. um, and it's like all the time. So like to me, it kind of honestly to tie it into the quote unquote real world, like I know this is real world, like happening in the real world. However, it reminded me of going to like a professional conference, how you
It
have all
is.
these different
hmm
topics being discussed
Yep.
at the same times. And sometimes you got to pick and choose because two of the things you
hmm
want to go to are at the same time. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
And that basically to me mentally takes it to a whole nother like professional fan type experience.
No,
So
you're 100% right on that. These big cons, like looking at San Japan, a Galaxy Con, like all these things. And I've said this to some of the people I've gone with. It's unfortunate. It punishes you. The more interest you have, the more you're punished because they don't care about other like times of your other stuff that you like. So then you're gonna have to
mhm,
make those choices like, oh, maybe you want to go to the fan room about, oh, since you're the My Hero person, oh, who should Midoriya actually end up with, like
mhm.
romantically, and be in that debate? Oh, you want to sit on that? Oh, too bad the Demon Slayer panel's at the same time, or oh, too bad for that. They don't care. Avatar: The Last Airbenders panel's at the is 5 minutes into the Demon Slayer panel, and like 20 minutes into that panel is the Sailor Moon panel. So the more interest and more like diverse you
Diversiver.
are,
Mm,
it affects you greatly. And I've seen some people be like, "Oh, I don't know what to go to because I really like movies and one of my favorite actors, actresses is about to go." And then some people need to get up because that's the time their pictures are going to be that they paid for. So with these big cons and looking at San Japan, this has been going on. This the biggest in Texas. You know a lot better than me. Texas is a very big state, and this is the biggest con in the whole South Texas region. So,
so I will say, to be fair, and not to knock any, any flowers, it's easy for San Antonio to have the biggest convention in South Texas because basically San Antonio is the cutoff for South Texas. And honestly, as somebody from the Valley, and my peeps, hopefully from the Valley that are listening to this, can back me up. It's an argument whether or not San Antonio is actually South Texas.
that's
I would
funny.
kind of argue not, because it sits almost in Central, and you got another 4 hours south to the border. Actually, 5 if you want to go all the way down to Brownsville. So, like
Oh,
calling San Antonio South Texas, people get away with it. Regionally, people get away with it, and because it is by far the largest city in quote unquote South Texas, it's not hard to have that,
well,
especially with an international airport up here. But again, who knows? Maybe the Valley. will get together and start throwing a convention that will eventually grow to rival in size of San Japan. Who knows?
It's been going on
But yeah,
since
no.
2007 as of right now, which is,
Ooh.
yes, this is why it's a big deal. First one ever was November 10th, 2007. The only time they've ever had to cancel was obviously September 4th through 6th, 2020 because of COVID.
For
But
COVID.
they came back 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 is at the end of August. They already have their dates set all the way up to 2030. So it is a very big deal.
Oh, so even okay, now knowing that essentially the 20-year anniversary is going to be in 2 years, I'm thinking, I'm thinking this may be the con to jump down as like the L7C pod and go together. Just throwing it
It's
out there.
it's looking to well to I would have to look at what 2027 holds, but it's looking to like September 3rd through the 5th. That's
Mm-hmm.
around Labor Day.
It is.
So, I mean, hey, if you're saying that now, I have no we can
I don't know,
go from there.
we'll kind of put it out there to the pod. We got to get the pod to all do a con one time. I know it's easier for me to go to GalaxyCon, and we can explore the possibilities of that as well. But 20th anniversary, I wonder what kind of stops they're going to pull out for that. Because there's always going to be some sort of celebration when you hit milestones.
We'll see. That'll be the 20th anniversary of that. Just looking ahead at, I mean, 2030 will be the 10-year anniversary of the L7C podcast, especially that last week of August. That'll be the anniversary of Mitch's first episode because the 5-year anniversary is this August. So we will we will see on that. But
Amazing.
main thing of the pod, Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon, yes. Not to stray too far, this was my first time getting to listen to a Sailor Moon pod. This was my first time getting to meet one of the voice actresses for Sailor Moon. I did meet the voice actress for Sailor Moon herself, Miss Linda Ballantyne with a B. Um, and oh my gosh, that panel was so, oh, I loved it. It was so awesome. Like, she was, Linda was a ball of energy. So it was on the panel. It was planned to be, I believe, just Sailor Moon and Sailor Mars, who Sailor Mars is voiced by, I believe it's Katie Griffith or Griffin. And so it was intended to just be the two of them. But lo and behold, the voice actor for Tuxedo Mask was also there at the con. So he sauntered on up there with them.
It's cool.
And this was a piece of lore that I did not know. Apparently, the voice actress for Sailor Mars and the voice actor for Tuxedo Mask were dating during the filming of all of this, which just adds a whole other level. Because anybody who watched Sailor Moon knows that like Ray was angling for Darien, and they kind of go out on a date or two, and Ray's like super jealous and trying to get in the way of Serena and Darien, and it was really funny because they kind of played off of each other like that on stage, kind of making like not not actually bitter or anything like that, but just like fun little jabs like here and there, like, oh, so, sounds like why we broke up, or hey, I'm married now, like that type of stuff back and forth. It was really funny. um it was really cool to actually listen to a panel where people had been doing this work for several decades and were around during the time that you know um cons didn't exist. And that was something they touched on during the panel. So it was really interesting to hear their thoughts about how, they're um, glad and excited to be able to meet the fans in this way, in this forum, because it wasn't popular before. Like, it was one of those things where they kind of did it, they knew it was kind of popular. Okay, there's no there wasn't any desire to pull them out to meet the fans directly. And they were talking about like the first time they went out to do a panel in a con, and they could hear like how loud the giant crowd was. And they started asking, like, oh, yeah, where are you guys going? What's going on? They're like, oh my gosh, it's the Sailor Moon panel. Like, we're so excited. And so I think it reinvigorated their excitement about the work that they had done, even though it was so long ago. And it's one of those things where you can cognitively like know how important something is and how it can impact somebody or it could impact them. But there's a whole different level when like hearing about it directly from somebody. Again, feel bad for veering into a different topic, but like when I was waiting in line to get Justin, I believe his last name's Briner, Midoriya's voice actor's
Hmm.
signature, there was a little girl standing next to me with her dad, and she just, suddenly struck up the conversation. And she shows me that she's planning to give him this like fan art drawing that she did. And so I can only imagine again, like when I met Linda and telling her about like what Sailor Moon meant to me and how, you know, Sailor Moon got me into anime and animes like really helped me develop strong relationships with people, friendships, romantic relationships, um, just tangential, and I can't with words today. Um, but even just having general conversations with a stranger in a line about something we both mutually enjoy. And it's really special to get to see that community up close and personal. Because again, like until I went to a convention, the biggest room I'd ever been in with, other quote unquote anime fans, nerds, weebs, whatever you want to call them, call us, I shouldn't say them because it's very much me too, um, would have been anytime, our pod mates are all in a room. And that'd be what, max 10 people? Less? So walking into, that first line where it took me 30 minutes to get into the convention, it's like, oh my God, like here we are on this massive scale of hundreds of people. And it really reinforces that whole idea of community and the connections that we can all share, even if it's not something on the surface level. Like, I know I get the comment all the time. I don't know about you, Martin, but like, I'll suddenly start talking about it, or somebody will overhear me talking about different anime, Sailor Moon, um, Demon Slayer, My Hero, whatever. The person I was talking to walks off, and somebody else jumps in and is like, "Oh, I never would have guessed. Like you watch that or you like that stuff, blah 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 blah." And it's like, yeah, you never really know because unless I feel like unless I have something very visible, either like a shirt or a sticker or the decals on cars and things of that nature, unless you have something visible to get that conversation started, most people are going to assume that you probably don't watch certain shows, that you aren't into certain type of media, whatever, unless there's like a visual or audio cue.
So a couple things on some of the stuff that you just said. What are the biggest thing with these conventions and cons like that? And like you talked about the camaraderie and things like that. It's akin to people who go to sporting events or they of any type of nature, or they're going to performances like a Broadway, or if you're going to go sports entertainment and watch WWE and things like that. When you are, if everyone is going to these places, you assume everyone has, if you're there, you have interest in the stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And in that point, I mean, it's a lot easier to have conversations with people because you're all there for similar type of interests. But it also shows, just like sports and other things like that, how different everyone is and how this stuff can bring people together. Because I can
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you, obviously, like you were talking with that little girl and then like her family and all that stuff and like seeing all that jazz. Guarantee you, you have your own beliefs about stuff, whether it be politics, religion, things like that. And some people there might have the same beliefs as you. I'm pretty 90% sure everyone there had different type of beliefs than you, but none of that stuff matters when you go to these things
Mm-mm.
because you're only there for the stuff you're there for, hence bringing people together in the safe space and all of that stuff. I think with this it's a similar trope
Mm-hmm.
for when you talked about them like saying, "Oh, I don't know if you watch this stuff," or just like that. It could be the same thing, almost used for if they don't know if you were going to sporting events and they were just like, "Oh, I didn't know you were into football or
Mm-hmm.
whatever," because you never wear like football stuff, and then small conversation like, "Oh no, I played sports in high school all the way through college," and then like, "Oh, I never knew that," and it's like it's one of those stereotypical things that still society, especially now, is kind of wacky with the way the world is. But like for a lot of girls, the people think the prettier they are, the less they're into. They don't know anything about sports or they
Right.
don't know anything about anime or wrestling for that, all those things, and then that's a whole other thing about like then the gatekeeping happens, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's the same with like guys too. Like if a guy doesn't look like he works out or he doesn't wear anything, like, oh, they might just be like a total nerd, and that shouldn't even be a negative connotation in itself. But like, they might not be into sports, or it's one thing like, oh, if a guy's like super into anime, that means they might not be into sports, probably that negative thing. Or if someone's like really into sports and they're not into anime, or just like a girl, she's like, oh, if she's into anime or whatnot, she's quote unquote weird and she's not into
Mm-hmm.
reality, whatever people think girls watch all the time, reality TV, like stuff like that. But
Right.
then if she's into reality TV and those dramas, she's just a girl and she's not into like playing sports or watching sports or like going to the convention. And everyone has a little pre-programmed in a sense, but it's like I think when you go more and more to these type of things, you realize there's a lot of like you can't judge. Like you're like, oh, you like this stuff? Cool. You don't have to add the, oh, I would never would have suspected you. Like it's just like, oh, you like it? Cool. I mean, we're obviously
Right.
here.
That's
We all spent a couple $100 to at least get into the thing, and we're all gonna spend a couple hundred more
a couple
buying
hundred more.
merch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
long when it brings I mean, these cons bring a whole bunch of different people of different lifestyles, different backgrounds, different
Yep.
financial economic status together to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the medium that lets them escape the realities of the world. Long story
Right.
short.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just mentally forgot the note that I was about to pick up on that you mentioned that I was going to drive straight into the whole, oh, essentially like not putting people in boxes and not,
Hmm.
I mean, that's something that I feel like, again, Sailor Moon is supposed to be our primary topic for this podcast. And I honestly, I feel like that's something that they did really, really, really well. And especially doing so with a, what, 95% female cast.
Hmm.
I think the most men were, they were either villains or they were side characters. Tuxedo Mask is the only, like, quote unquote, he's the main lead, like, male character. However, he's not necessarily in every episode, especially as Cassie pointed out in her podcast talking about the cultural legacy of Sailor Moon. The last season of Sailor Moon, Sailor Stars, was never dubbed in English, and so never brought over to quote unquote the English audience. We had to seek it out and watch it subbed. He actually is abroad. He and Serena are going through like a long distance type thing, and there's like an accident where his plane is kind of like suspended in reality, and so she's not able to communicate with him for a really long period of time. So that's basically my example of how like he's not in every episode. And even in the episodes that he's in, predominantly most of them are let me throw this rose at the precise time, give you a couple words, and then like dip. So he's not really primary function, come in, save the day type deal. He definitely comes in to throw encouraging words, which is wonderful. But the cast is 95% women. And each of the Sailor Scouts, I mean, each one of them is a very interesting character. And I think, again, especially for that time, because as much as Sailor Moon's a 90s anime, I think it was actually written in the 80s.
Most of the
That's
90s animes were written in like we didn't get them until the 90s.
right. That's right. So, and I feel like the ideas of, oh, you're a girl, you only like certain things was even
Hmm.
more stringent at that time. So to have each of the female characters have different personalities, have different interests, have different strengths, but then they all bring them forward on this team, unite together to fight evil and, do good things through their shared determination, passion, and strength. So, I mean, each of the main five that we're all most familiar with, again, Sailor Moon, we all know her as a crybaby, and she is. But she's like the epitome of the I'm a cry about it, but then I'm going to handle my business thing. Like that's her. She also wasn't necessarily very academically inclined. One of the running jokes throughout the whole show is the fact that she's a terrible student. I
Hmm.
think that's how she first interacts with Darien, is that she crumpled up a test that she failed and threw it behind her and it hit him in the head. And it was something like, I think it was like a 7 out of 100 or something like that, 7 out of 50. Like she can canonically gets terrible grades. And a lot of people would feel like, oh, you get terrible grades, therefore you're not smart, therefore you shouldn't lead a team. But we see her be a good leader. We see her step up. Sure, she's not the strategist per se. She's not the one doing background research. However, the person who is very book smart, book inclined, Amy, Sailor Mercury, she's she's definitely the brains behind the operation. However, some people get the notion, okay, you're smart, you're smart, you're going to be kind of cocky, or you're going to be, you're a smart girl, so you're going to look down on a quote unquote dumb girl. No. And so it's just the continual kind of softly breaking of these stereotypes and um, just negative connotations around women's relationships with each other. Because I can't speak to feelings about this at that time because I was too young. But I know nowadays, I mean, there's still that pervasive idea that, women can't be friends with each other, that there's always some sort of secret competition or somebody's always a secret hater. Like it's I feel like this anime shows truly that even with the little bit of, competition between Serena and Ray, Sailor Mars, because Ray does try to angle for the leadership position every now and again. She does kind of compete with Serena for Darian's affections, but most of the time, Sailor Mars is just really pointing out things that she feels like Serena could do better and should be doing better. And as the series goes on, she does step up. So it's one of those things where they're not frenemies. Like they don't they just bicker. I feel like of the group, those two are the most like actual sisters versus friends. Um, and then oh my gosh, Cassie mentioned her favorite character. Ironically, was one of my top faves in the show as well. Sailor Jupiter, Lita. I mean, she's supposed to be the stereotypical tomboy because she's tall, she knows how to fight, she's tough, she stands up for herself. Um, but she loves to bake, and she wants to fall in love, and she wants to find a guy. So even when they're trying to have quote unquote like the character that's more guys are gonna like the quote unquote tomboy girl of the group. But no, she's not strictly a tomboy. Like it's there's multiple facets to every single one of their characters. Sailor Venus, they hint on it in the anime. They don't really go into it too much. But Sailor Venus was essentially a solo hero on her own for a little bit before Serena met up with Luna and awakened her powers and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
So she she's a little bit ditzy, just like Serena is, but she's very determined, she's very kind-hearted, and she does not give up Venus. She's yeah. Um, for me, I had a really hard time choosing a favorite character. I love them each for different reasons, but if I had to pick only one, I would probably say, mm, that's so hard. My favorite Sailor Moon character, my favorite one as a kid was Sailor Moon because she was the main one. She was a crybaby. She was the one that stepped up to the plate to handle things at the end. However, the one I felt most represented by was probably a tie between Lita, Jupiter, and Ray, Mars. Um, I saw myself and Amy a little bit being the whole book smart, wanting to go on and, study and is really focused on her studies. But I actually saw my mom more in Sailor Mercury, especially since they gave um, her English name being Amy, and that is my mom's first name. So that helped. Plus, my mom's a nurse practitioner, and Amy was studying to be a doctor. Like, it just, so yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, everything that Cassie mentions, and I hope you'll tag like the link to her podcast in the description of this one as well. But I mean, I feel like Cassie just hit the nail on the head for all of the cultural points that have just lasted. I mean, it's amazing that Sailor Moon has continued to be as popular as it is, and it's 30 years later. Um, there was still a decent crowd for the panel. I mean, I remember seeing decent sized lines for Linda and Katie during the convention when I went both days. My piece of advice, if you're going to go to a smaller convention like I did, go during the second day because the lines were A, way shorter, B, people were not standing in front of all of the different vendor stalls for as long.
Well, your
My
your
only,
second day is a Sunday, so like a bigger con the
yes,
second day would be a Saturday, and that'd be a lot worse because that's when people are off
right.
work.
So yeah, that's why I'm saying again, I didn't realize mine was like a like small scale con. I actually hadn't, especially considering that they went bigger this year than the first time I went. So
Hmm.
yeah, so a small scale con that's only the 2 day, Saturday and Sunday, go on Sunday, unless the voice actor you're trying to meet won't be there on Sunday, or like you
Hmm.
have to go to those panels on Saturday. Like, I mean, I kind of regret standing in line for Justin's signature for I think it was 2 hours is how long we actually waited. Two and a half. When I could have gone on Sunday and made it through that line in probably half the time because it was much shorter. Anyway, I mean, it's June, so in the US it's Pride Month. I mean, that was a huge thing. Honestly, Sailor Moon was, and Cassie does bring it up in her podcast. Yes, in the English dub, they turn the lesbian couple into cousins. And even as a probably kinder, first, second grader, I knew something was up. Like, I know they called each other cousins, but it was like, there's a little too much tension here. They're a little too touchy-feely. Like, and they're so beautiful together. Like, you know that they're in love. So I know for me, I just kind of pushed the whole cousins thing aside and was like, yeah, no, that's weird. Um, but yeah, that was my first time like seeing in media a lesbian couple. And even the way that they do Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, like it's not like a caricature, a lesbian couple or a same-sex couple. It's not sticking to the stereotypes. Like it Sailor Uranus is, yes, more masculine presenting, but when it came down to the transformation, she was still wearing a skirt. She still put makeup on. Um, when her eyelashes were more defined, like she looked quote unquote more feminine, but when she was wearing more masculine style clothing and with her short hair and doing more quote unquote masculine activities like racing cars and driving a motorcycle, it didn't feel like she was trying to be a man. She just liked these things, and that's how she liked being herself. She was just herself. And then again, Sailor Neptune, I mean, she was the most like classy Sailor Scout. Like she was the most elegant and refined, quiet, comforting. It was just awesome. Like, and then again, Sailor Stars, which we never got brought over to the US, particularly because the additional characters that are brought in, the Sailor Stars, they're from a different planet, and on their planet, they're uh, females, they're women. But for some reason, when they came to Earth looking for their princess, they're hiding out amongst the general population as a boy idol group. So when they're not transformed, they're men, like they're wearing male clothing. You notice it most during their transformations in the sense of all of them. When they transform, it's basically their clothes are gone, their bodies are all sparkly to not, be quote unquote nude. But you see the difference happen in that they have flat chest, broad shoulders, and then they transform and now they have more feminine body parts, mini skirts. I think they were kind of like bikini style tops ish. Like they were even more, they showed even more skin than the Sailor Scouts. So yeah, that was not gonna fly then, and it would definitely not fly now. But I mean, again, like there's very little I could critique about Sailor Moon. I loved it so much. I love it so much. Probably the only thing I could touch on is how much they focus on, like in the lessons and in quips to make fun of Serena about how much she eats and like, using being fat as, like just the worst thing you could become as a woman. Like that's probably my main thing. But again, that's also ingrained from the times and carryover, and especially in from a culture that's very thin-minded. That I mean, I think the percentage of people who are overweight in Japan, I think I read was like 8%, something like that. Like it's very low. Obesity is not very much of a problem over there at all. So, needing to be conscious about talking about food and weight and all that stuff to little kids probably isn't as controversial as it is now. But I mean, we still get media where that stuff happens all the time. So, but yeah, that's probably my only personal thing. And I mean, it's massive credit to the voice actors and actresses, actually voice actresses and voice actors, because there were more actresses than actors, voice actresses and actors for bringing these characters to life and, helping us fall in love with them. Um, they made it very easy for us to do so. And the fact that they were given the opportunity to dub this over for us and even unknowingly um, do it in such a way that would last for such a long time, because during the panel, like somebody did ask them, like, did you like foresee, the impact? Did you know it was really going to become really popular? And they were like, no, not really. We just kind of like, oh, this is what it is. Okay, cool. Something else I learned is that Linda and Katie, so Sailor Moon and Sailor Mars, their voice actresses are really good friends in real life. So that to me, that was something I talked to Linda about. The fact that I also met a lifelong friend through work, not knowing that they become like a fixture in my life and all that good stuff, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So for them, they didn't really understand the impact they were about to have working on that show until years later, when again it's been a decade, maybe a little more, when they go to their first convention and they have that big old crowd excited to hear their thoughts, hear them speak about this work that they did on a show that's touched so many people. And yeah, I just feel like I'm monologuing way too much for this podcast.
I think with the Sailor Moon, I don't know, because obviously I wasn't there and you got to speak to Sailor Moon, Linda, and all that. Now, if it was just me, I think the only thing I would have said, besides other passing conversations, is like you said, they didn't know, but obviously they do now, and just like, just a general thank you for all the stuff that they did, and have continued. to do because as you get older, like as we get older now, we learn about like TV contracts and cancellations and things of that nature. I mean, how many people, if Sailor Moon wasn't the hit that it became, how many people would like anime to this day?
Right.
How many people who have become parents or grandparents would have not introduced them to anime? And I know, oh, shoot, I'm wearing the guy's shirt. I know that majority and again rightfully so, a majority of the praise and whatnot goes to Dragon Ball and really the big boom of anime over here in the States and all of that and their success. And they continue to do that as well. But Sailor Moon was right there. I know just to relate it to sports and all of that. Back in 2016, God rest his soul, when Kobe Bryant retired, and players then were talking when he was retiring, they were like, he was there, like they were, Kobe was there, Michael Jordan. In terms of like, and I know Cassie brought it up a little bit, just that it's like Goku was like, again, he was a Michael Jordan for the guys, and then Sailor Moon was a Michael Jordan for the girls. I mean, if you want,
Absolutely.
if you want to go from, I'm just using, not just saying Michael Jordan because he's a guy and all that, but just because it's easier to say for like him stick. But if you want to be like, oh, he was, if you wanted to make it more like the gender type thing, you could say Goku was the Michael Jordan for the guys, and Sailor Moon was like Serena Williams or like one of those
Mm-hmm.
people for the ladies. And I think with that now, it's not the case anymore because boys or girls or whatever you identify as, it doesn't matter which sex or gender your favorite character is now. Like right
Mm-hmm.
now in 2025, you could walk into a con and be like, hey, who's your favorite anime character? Like right now. And you could say, Tanjiro Kamado, or you could say
Mm-hmm.
Izuku Midoriya, or you could say Froppy, or you could say Uruk or Momo, and no one would bat an eye. You'd be like, okay. Obviously, when we were growing up all those years ago, who's your favorite? As a girl, you were expected to say Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
It's just the way it was back then, and and they have paved the way. And then like guys watching Sailor Moon, girls watching like all that stuff. So now it's okay. It doesn't matter which gender you are. The only thing that I wish would have happened, like a special panel that you guys would have had the ability to do, is if you would have got her and Sean Schimmel to do a panel together, just to talk about like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
just let's just be honest, anime might not be in the United States if it weren't for you two.
Right.
Like that, I
Like,
think that would be, and if you're listening to this,
Linda, yes, because I will
Linda,
tag you because I did tell you about the podcast and you were like, "Do you follow me on Instagram?" And I was
yeah,
like, "No." She's like, "Yeah, follow me." So yes, once this is up, I will be posting it on my story. I will be tagging her, and I hope and pray she listens to it, listens this far because thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I appreciate the time you took to speak with me, and and especially if you take the time to listen to this podcast,
we'll
and
make
any of
it
the other
easy. We'll
ones.
make it easy for you. We'll put timestamps in there if you want to just skip to the Sailor Moon stuff.
That's
But
fair. That would be great.
in all honesty, but then yeah, going back to my idea with both of them in there, I think it's a missed opportunity. I mean, that you could have had both of them, just the two of them panel, just like, hey, did you both know you guys would become your voices and your characters would become literally the faces of anime, especially in the West in the
Hmm.
90s of all time when people think of their favorite anime characters of all time, or if people think about what got them into anime, anyone born from like 2000, whatever, they think of you guys. And like obviously too, with you guys, like the fandoms going at each other, because obviously there's like the Goku versus Sailor Moon thing, or the
Yep.
Goku or the Goku Sailor Moon like fan stuff, like the fan novels and fan romance and all of that, because you're the biggest male anime character ever, and you're the biggest female anime character ever. Of course, we're gonna put you two against
But you
each
did.
other, put you
Hmm.
guys in romantic stories. Like, how have you guys felt like that? Because again, we don't have any of this stuff is for them. So I think, again, Linda, if you're listening, bring that up next year if you both are there. Have a panel with Sailor Moon, Goku, chopping it up, have a good moderate. They're asking the questions. Fans will eat it up because again, we don't have any of this stuff. We're not talking about My Hero or Demon Slayer or any of this stuff if you guys didn't pave the way.
Right. Absolutely. Well said.
All right, all right. Andrew, what else are we talking about?
Well, speaking of my conversation with Linda, and we did touch on it, I touched on it earlier, talking about like, friendships, work friendships, making friends through anime, all that good stuff. I mean, we've said it, obviously not a million times because I haven't, said probably close to a million words yet on the podcast, but
You don't
I
think you've
did
said a
tell,
million words?
ah, I don't know. With my ranting, probably. But basically, I'm trying to say I haven't been on the podcast enough for us to have said this a million times, is what I was trying to say. Anyway, but yeah, like our friendship, when she was talking about, her and Katie becoming lifelong friends after working on this project together during the panel, because I met her after I went to the panel, not before. So bringing that up, I mentioned, how we met and how we're still, really close friends. We worked together, then we started talking about anime together, and now we do a podcast together, hence, the whole side conversation about that. But bringing it back to what I actually had her sign for me, and I'm hoping you're going to remember this, sir. I know the audience won't be able to see it, but I did get that meme you sent me from a
That's
couple of years
funny.
ago signed
That's funny.
uh, for, for for the audience. Um, I will say I think some of the resurgence in Sailor Moon's popularity is partly because of her large presence in meme culture. And two years ago, almost exactly, I looked at the timestamp. You sent me this meme of Sailor Moon blushing, looking down in the rain, like, yikes, what did I just do? And the caption reads, me thinking about how much I overshared in a conversation. You sent that to me in a Facebook Messenger message and just said, frame it. My response to you was, I would frame it if I got her to sign it. And here it is signed. So I will be working on framing it to put up in either my house or in my office.
What is that, a
And
5 by 11?
I think it's a,
Or is it
I
8
think
by
it is a
16?
8 by 10. It's an 8 by 10. I think it's 8 by 10. Pretty sure. But yeah. And so she signed it. She thought it was hilarious, by the way. And I had to, of course, explain the backstory to it, which got a laugh, which was sweet of her. But yeah, so that was my surprise to reveal on the podcast to you, was that I did it. It took me 2 years, but I did it. I got it signed, and now I'm going to get her frames.
That's
I,
awesome.
I keep my word. What can I say?
I would say when you were talking to Linda about friendships and all of that, just going back to previous stuff we talked about earlier, and even the situation that you're in now with through meeting me, you've met all the other people. But
Mm-hmm.
if this was, I'm trying to think, no, 2014, if this was 10 years ago, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
does that even happen? If the same situation, like if we're the same ages working at the same place just 10, 20 years ago, does that even happen? Just from a standpoint of like we were just talking about earlier, would you be that open like 20 years ago? Would you be conformed by society to not be open, that you watch like
And
any
right.
anime and all that stuff and you might just keep it to yourself, and then you hear like other guys or other people talking about it, but you feel weird going up there because it's like, oh, no one's watching anime, or even from a standpoint of even if it was just flipped itself, like just talking about anime at work in general or anywhere in public because it was a very taboo thing. Just like one of my favorite memes is like the one guy who watches anime and everyone's just like, oh my gosh, it sucks. Like when they were watching it before it became, like we've talked about,
Right.
mainstream, but now it's just like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And I've used this example so many times. Kim Kardashian posting with pink hair saying Sakura is her favorite character, or Britney Spears saying that like, oh, my kid's obsessed with Dragon Ball, like stuff like that. Like you wouldn't hear that stuff 20 years ago. And
No.
now it's like people putting it in songs, people putting it on their apparel, people doing collaborations, big business. I mean, businesses obviously besides the toys doing tweets and stuff. I don't know if you saw it, but McDonald's was doing what they think popular anime characters McDonald's meals would be. So that was
Oh,
yeah, so that was
wow.
very cool in itself from because he was there too, another legend, Johnny Bosch, aka Ichigo. From
Mm-hmm.
Ichigo to
He was also
Aaron.
Artemis in Sailor Moon, by the way.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and the original and one of the original Power Rangers from the second season. And then it was stuff from like Ichigo to Aaron when he's the Attack Titans, Mio to Dan to Dan's group to
Mm-hmm.
so I mean like just stuff like that you don't see. And obviously like I'm a very because I moderate everything here. I'm a very big sports person and like the sports at Twitter
The
now
sports collabs, yes.
seeing pictures of them drawn in certain anime things. And of course, like we get the like, all right, but then sometimes when we literally think of the show, we're like, that makes no sense. Like this person's like the kind of like for the NBA finals, from Oklahoma City, Shea Gilgeous Alexander, who's going to the finals, they had a picture of him being Sasuke walking down Donzo, who the Minnesota Timberwolves, who they beat. And we're like, that makes no sense. Shea is not like Sasuke at all, but hey, we get the pictures. Well, we do all that stuff. Now, any picture, anytime someone is hurt in sports, boy, girl, whoever, what picture they use now? They use Goku in the little rejuvenation pod and Planet
Mm-hmm.
Namek saying like, oh, Simone Biles loading or Serena,
Yep.
where they use that. Everyone uses that now and things like that. And like, oh, we have rivals. Who are we going to use? We're going to use Goku and Vegeta. We're just going to put their faces on their bodies. And so it's crazy how it's completely changed. So again, if we had the same situation 10, 20, 15 years ago, we were probably maybe never have spoken to each other and not be friends. And you're doing this podcast somewhere down the line with someone else, or we're doing it with someone else. And
Let's be
yeah,
real honest here, Martin. Let's be real honest here, Martin. If you and I weren't friends, I would never be doing a podcast. You're the
you don't know
only
that.
reason
You could
I
have met
started
someone
doing
else.
this. We do know
You
this.
could have
I
met
know this.
someone more charismatic at a different juncture, and you'd be like, oh, I can do that.
I I mm, I don't think there would have been hardly anyone else that could have convinced me to put my thoughts and feelings and oversharingness, as you have shared with me, um, on the internet to quote unquote live forever. It kind of still boggles my mind that I even do this. So much
Do
so that
this. You're one of the
unfortunately,
most listened people on the damn thing now.
yeah, thanks. Anyway, again, none of this happens though without the our friendship, the encouragement, the support. And I mean, you've talked about it before, but kind of going through my progression from the first time we did a podcast when what was it? It was Girls Watch Anime too.
Which will also be
Um,
tech. Which we should have also re-listened. We should have actually re-listened to that and then talked about some of the things that we've talked about, like how it was socially acceptable and things like that.
mhm.
Because that was one of the top 10 listened episodes. I don't know if it's anymore, but it was
No,
at a
it got
point one of
knocked
the
out.
top. Yeah, it was a top 10 listened one of all time a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
girls were
hey
20,
guys.
20 something. We're like, hey, I'm a girl. I like it. Yeah, I've been feeling like this too. So.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, hey guys, we can, once it's tagged, go back and listen to it. Put me back up. Put it back up there. Anyway, it's fine. Shameless plug, which I
Hey.
have never done before. Anyway, but yeah, no, like I would not be doing this. This is not something that I feel like is very in my character. However, I've become more comfortable doing it because primarily these podcasts feel to me as if we would have had a mic during our conversations after work, during work, just talking about anime. So, um, I mean, I can't thank you enough for inviting me to do this because there's also an alternative reality where you would have never brought it up or where I would have just been super stubborn and continued to say no. So, regardless, I am glad that everything has worked out the way that it has. I am blessed to have such good friends from something that people really would have seen as negative. And like you said, I wouldn't have talked about because I didn't talk about watching anime to almost anyone between the ages of probably around 11 to like 16, 17. And then it was kind of like I would sneak it in there, be like, make a reference to Naruto. And I would only talk about Naruto. I wouldn't get into until I got that response of being like, oh, that's cool. You watch blah, 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 blah. So it, and then heck, when I went to college, unless I was talking to somebody that had already established also watched anime, I didn't say a word. Absolutely did not say a word about it until probably towards the end. So yeah, it's it's a charmed life to be in the anime community and make um, lasting friendships through our mutual enjoyment of the media, the lessons, the themes um, that we all connect to and just enjoy.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, same thing. It's like it's one of those things where you're feeling the waters of, oh, does this person gonna think I'm weird or whatnot? And obviously, just to go back to thing you talk about the most, just think of Koichi, aka the Crawler. I mean, in My Hero Vigilante, he's like he had a bad first impression in college, and that stuck with him. If you would have tried to make some friends and you invite them to your dorm for a little college, little freshman hangout, and they open the door and they see like anime posters and whatnot, they could have been like, "Oh,
Body pillows.
but yeah, she's weird. Oh, we can't hang out with her." Blah blah
Mm-hmm.
this, blah blah that, and then your college experience is already shot from the beginning just because of something you like. Now in 2025, I mean, people could have their posters up, whatever, clothes, everything's honky dory, apparel. And then if you call me, it's like, yeah, stuff like, oh, whatever. I like it. I know there's a group. I think I bring it up with Dragon Ball expert of the pot, Mitch. It's like you really don't know how much like people really like this stuff until you're in a space where people are there.
Yes.
Like you're like for Sailor Moon, you're like, oh yeah, Sailor Moon changed your life, yeah, all that. And then when you go, you're just looking around like, wow, I may have driven past some of these people going to this place or going to work or going to the store and never will see these
I
people maybe
was
again.
I
And
was
all these
low key a
people
little
like it.
concerned. I was low key a little concerned I was going to run into. I don't mean people that I work with as in coworkers. I mean, because like our old job, essentially, it's like if you run into them in public,
Hmm.
technically, if people know what you do, then that's automatically identifying them within a certain space. And so,
Yeah.
like the advice that we were given was like if you run into somebody that you know from work, not that you work with, that you know from work, um, that they said just don't engage. Don't engage with them unless they come up and like speak to you. Because of course you don't be rude, but like you don't want to engage and then that automatically signals to other people that know you how you would know them if you don't identify them as a coworker. So I was kind of nervous for that situation to come up. And then I started thinking in my brain about like, Martin, when you go to cons, do you see any of your probies there? Like do off-duty officers see people that they pick up sometimes for, petty crimes like at the con like
Oh, I'm
who
pretty, I mean,
all the
well,
different potential interactions that could happen at a
I,
con because everybody can and could be there.
yeah. So with me in particular, like I really wouldn't want to talk to anyone that I work with on either endpoint because I'm a very like it takes a lot out of me to even like talk to someone who I work like a coworker outside of
Mm-hmm.
work. So I really wouldn't want to talk to them there, and then even the people I work with on any of my jobs. But I also came to a point, it was probably 24, like 15 when I just realized it's like, look, the world's a big place, but the world's also a small place. You are
Hmm.
eventually you have been in places where your people who you've worked with in either aisle, supervisor or whatnot, they're going to be there, or they have been there. So it's just being a normal human being and all of that. Those cons of thousands upon thousands of people, there are plenty of people who I would never, who I don't talk like from coworkers who've probably gone there, people I supervise who've been there, hell, people I when I go on like a social media thing, seeing people I haven't spoken to in person in probably 15, 20 years saying, "Oh, GalaxyCon was so great," and I'm like, "Oh." Some people are high school from their exes, what, and you can name it. It's just like you just gotta roll with it. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, people go to the weekend is the weekend for everyone. That
Right.
weekend they're blowing off steam because maybe they you pissed them off at someone at work, and then you're blown off steam because maybe they pissed you off at work, and you all end up somehow at the same adult establishment. What are you gonna
Hmm.
do? Leave? I mean, it's just you could do that, but it's just the way it is in life now. You're just gonna run into people just being a professional
Right.
and dealing with that. But no, Andrea, anything else?
No, I just appreciate, your willingness to hop on this random podcast with me. I feel like we zigzagged all over the place a little bit, but hey, that's entertaining. That's how my brain works. Welcome to the inner mechanisms of my mind, audience. If you've never heard me talk before, there's plenty of other podcasts where you will see this happen, as Martin can attest to. But just as always, thank y'all so much for listening. Linda, if you listen to this all the way through, much appreciated. I just the fact that you even told me to tag you, and that it could come across your Instagram if I tagged you, to give our podcast a listen is, I mean, leaps and bounds beyond what I would have expected you to say, or even hoped for you to say. So thank you so much. We as fans really appreciate your time, dedication, and honestly, your excitement. You were so excited to be answering those questions on the panel, and it was really a pleasure to listen to it and get to meet you. So thank you so much. As always, to our fans, like, comment, subscribe, continue listening to all the wonderful and very diverse podcasts within our podcast repertoire. Because I know, as much as I appreciate being one of the more popular people to listen to on the podcast, there's there's something for everyone. So even if I'm not your cup of tea, or I'm starting to annoy you, whatever it is, there's definitely other people with other perspectives and other topics that you can listen to. And I am rambling again, Martin, so please just cut me off.
Okay. I really don't have much to add to that. She already said thank you for everyone listening to L7C podcast. The only thing I'll add is that in the description box, we did highlight a lot of different episodes that have been done on here before. So we'll have Cassie's one about Sailor Moon a couple years ago up in the description box. We'll also have Andrea's very first one back in 2021. So that means in 2026, she'll be having like a 5 year anniversary as well. We'll have that Girls Like Anime 2 one. And also let us know if you listen to that one, like how different you think it is from that time to now, if things have changed. So we'll have both of those linked in the description box below. And with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.